Welcome to Align to Your Design. I'm your host, Beth Davis. Isn't it time to wrap your business around your purpose and bring your greatest work to the world? Each week, join me as we explore various biometric tools such as human design and hand analysis and how to use them to fulfill your destiny and align to your design. We will reveal how to do the work you are designed to do rather than what you think you should do. Hi, everyone. Beth Davis here, and you are listening and you're watching and listening Align to Your Design podcast, where you get to meet extraordinary men and women who are doing things that are aligned to their design. They are on purpose, at least as far as I'm concerned. It's my show. I invite the people, and I invite people who I observe and experience as being fully physically in their bodies, present, open-hearted, kind, compassionate, generous, passionate, alive, and doing their greatest work in the world, which is what I wish for everyone on this planet, especially the children. So if you have children, heads up, get their charts done. Get them started using their strategy and authority as soon as they understand what you mean about making decisions. They will not have to deal with eliminating the level of resistance most adults alive on the planet today are facing. We're living in this vast field of frustration, of anger, of bitterness, of disappointment, because people are not correct. And so I hope that this show exemplifies for you what it looks like when someone's correct and how joyful and in the flow they are. And for that, I'm so excited about our guest today. She is one of the most sparkly, delicious, friendly, fun, intelligent women I have met in a long, long time. Her name is Heather Alice Shea, and she is the founder of Atmana Academy, where she trains and certifies emerging intuitive coaches into purpose first, profit next businesses that thrive. Her passion is teaching healers, entrepreneurs, and coaches how to master superior coaching and superior coaching skills and harness the power of their intuition for a bolder business and a bigger bottom line. Using Heather's research-supported methodologies that yield faster results, she's helped hundreds of clients across 5 continents turn their soul's mission into a movement that elevates everyone they serve. You see what I mean? On purpose. She is a former psychotherapist turned master coach, and her work has been featured in top publications like Spirituality and Health Magazine, Mind, Body, Green, Brains Magazine, and Best Self Magazine. When Heather is not working, she loves running on the beach and advocating for mental health and human rights via her charity, Free Humanity Foundation. And with that, let's welcome the beautiful and amazing Heather Alice Shea to Align to Your Design.
Hey, Beth, it's so good to see you.
Oh, it's so good to see you. How have you been?
I am great. I just appreciate that wonderful introduction. You are so gracious, and it is wonderful to be serving on your show. You were so gracious to come into my community and do a workshop on design, and people raved about it for weeks. I think even some of our coaches are now in your community jumping into their design. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, the feeling is very, very mutual. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is intuition. It happens to live in our human design. And of course, we're going to look at your chart towards the end of the show, which is always a pleasure because you're a manifestor. And we don't get that many manifestors on here because you only make up 8% of the population. But you are the original kings and queens of humanity. Yeah.
That's like no pressure.
No pressure. No pressure, but I observe you, and it seems you're really flowing with what you're here to do. So with that, what do you think one of the biggest myths or misconceptions people have about intuition?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful question. And one of the greatest challenges I have in my work in helping people really live an intuitive lifestyle, and you and I share that, I think, similarly in purpose. What I mean by that is just having a person live their life like you were saying, correctly, in their own energy and their own truth, right? That's, to me, the intuitive lifestyle is about saying, yes, I value, the things that I learn in my life and exterior sources of wisdom. But at the end of the day, to thine own self be true, right? Following the dictates of your own conscience. And so to teach people how to really tap into that and start doing that, we have to dispel the myths because we really don't understand what this inner technology is. And so I like to start there. So thank you for the question. The most common myth, I think, the one that the most bang for your buck, if we focus on this one, really helps people step into accepting that they do have this inner source of wisdom to follow. And that is, a lot of people just don't identify as an intuitive. The myth is, well, I'm not one of those people. There are
Mm-hmm.
some people who are intuitive and some people who aren't, right? So it's this categorical thing. You're either intuitive or you're not. And that's actually completely incorrect. Research shows that intuition is a baseline human skill that every human being is born with, regardless of culture, nationality, race, socioeconomic status. Just like every human being is born with the ability to learn language, you're born intuiting. You're just not aware you're doing it. So I always love to sort of couch the idea of becoming more intuitive, quote unquote, as taking a currently unconscious process that you have and learning how to make it conscious and putting it under your own command, your own control. So blinking is always the analogy I give. How many times have you thought about blinking today? Probably not at all. But if you wanted to, you could blink.
That's right.
Right. So that's kind of the intuitive faculty. That's one of our the biggest myths about it. And the second one is that intuition is supernatural or
Mm-hmm.
spiritual in some way. It actually isn't at all. I mean, we did think that 50 years ago because we didn't have science that was strong enough to, instrumentation, right? Methods that were strong
Mm-hmm.
enough to explain the intuitive process. But we now know through about 70 years of research, the exact, I'm going to give you a $10 word here, psychobiological or psychophysiological mechanisms through and by which intuition works. So that's a $10 word for mind body. We now know exactly how a person intuits, a person receives intuitive information, picks up on it, deciphers it, and then uses it in creative, spontaneous, and practical ways to inform their life in a better direction.
Mm. And it's in our human design. So when we look
Mm-hmm.
at your chart, it lives right in the body. There are numerous different ways the intuition manifests even.
Right.
It's really
Yeah.
extraordinary. So tell me, what does Atmana mean?
Oh, yeah. So it's a word I made up. When I first, I grew up in a very, very strict, conservative, religious home here in the southern part of the United States, right? The true Bible Belt, right? So, if you couldn't see it, touch it, and smell it, or it wasn't in the Bible, you did not mess with it. But as I began to awaken, and a chronic illness is what really kind of, like so many intuitives, you experience this traumatic thing. As I began to study other religious disciplines, I fell in love with this concept of the Atman, which is from the
Mhm.
Hindu tradition. And the Atman is this concept of the higher self, or the soul of your soul, or we might say in the Western tradition, the version of yourself that if you were whole, if you were free, if you were expressing yourself as God or a higher power intended you to be in the world, if you were free of all of your programming, who would you be? So the Hindu
Mhm.
have a word for that, and that's called your Atman, the soul of the soul, right? Who God intended you to be, your best self. And then also fascinated with the concept of nirvana. So in the West, we think of nirvana as this like heavenly place where there's no suffering and it's kind of this reward for living a good life. But in the East, they really think of nirvana as a state of being without suffering, right? The
Mhm.
cessation of suffering through alignment with one's higher self. And so Atmana, I took the words, the A and A at the end of Atmana is the last three letters of nirvana. And then of course the Atman. And I wanted my company to stand for what I feel like our coaches do. And my core belief in knowing in this world is that as we align to our higher selves and as we are bold enough and courageous enough and daring enough to express the truth of who we are, suffering does end. And we do usher in the kingdom, right? The kingdom of higher consciousness. Some would call that God. And that is what I live every day of my life doing. It's what I train my coaches to do in their own unique and on purpose ways. And so that's what it means to be in Atmana.
Oh, that's beautiful. And it is very true that as you listen to your inner guidance, you eliminate resistance and you stop suffering.
Hmm.
It's quite an awakening to realize that suffering is mostly optional.
Totally. It's entirely optional. Pain isn't. We're going to hurt, but suffering is
Right.
suffering is something different, right? Yeah.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It really is. So, how do you use your intuition to guide your decisions? How does that work for Heather?
Oh, I love that question. Well, I to me it's the supreme voice. It's kind of the one that always wins at the end of the day. But I also do take an integrated approach. I
Hmm.
think that we have to honor who we are as creatures, as beings, our own nature. And you know what? We are one part divine, one part human. We are one part logic, one part intuition. And so I like to use both my traditional, rational, linear, left brain, dog with a bone, break it down to its component parts, make a list about it, do a thread, a SWOT analysis and a pros and cons, a cost benefit analysis. I love that. And I also like to use my intuition as well. So I always allow my intuition to lead. It's the one that ultimately wins in the end. But I have found that as I use my intuitive processes and I really think of intuition as an inner technology. I see it as a right brain information gathering and analysis tool. Okay. It's not illogical. It's non-logical. It's not irrational. It's non-rational. There's a difference. Okay. But when we use these two operating systems, right? Like I have Windows on my computer, but I also have Pages, Mac, right? When I
Right?
use them both,
Me
my
too.
business is better. So that's how I see it. I see it as an integrated approach. I always lean, if I don't know, I always go with my gut, but I like to use both of these processes because they're both a part of me. And I think that's what's missing from the intuitive conversation. So many people are afraid to trust their intuition because they see it as reckless. They see it as anti scientific. They
Mhm.
see it as woo woo. And they see it as something that's naive and that they're doing with blind faith. And nothing could be further from the truth. That's why I'm so passionate about teaching it from that research supported method. So I sit down, I tap in, I ask myself from a place, I always feel it in my heart, right? Your heart is actually your literal sixth sense. Literally, we know what it is now, just like your nose smells, your eyes see, your skin touches, right? Your tongue tastes, your heart intuits, and then it hits the brain and then it hits the gut. That's the pathway, but it starts in your heart. So I focus on my heart and I ask myself what I believe to be true. If I wasn't afraid of being judged, if I wasn't afraid of failing, and if I wasn't afraid of being blamed,
Mhm.
what would I decide? And I go with whatever that answer is.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yes, and as a manifester, you can do that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great, which we'll talk about in a minute. So with your team in your business, how do you support them in trusting their intuition? Do you have reminders at team meetings? Do they go through all your courses?
Mhm.
How do your employees learn to function in this way you're teaching your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually literally have a saying in the company that is be more and then the first name of the person. So be more Beth, be
Hmm.
more Shrana, be more Sasha, be more Amelia, be more Stephanie, be more Anne, be more Brannon, be more Heather, be more Akanksha, be more whoever, be more you, because I believe in the truth of every single human being in my life. And I want them to operate from that truth because I believe from that place of truth comes all good things. So
Hmm.
we say, be more Sharana, right? If we have a doubt, go with your gut. I trust you. And then I think the second thing is, so we just operate from that space. Like the only mistake we can make is to deny our truth, period, end of story. Everything else we can fix. But
Hmm.
that, no, that's a sacrilege. And the second thing is shared vision. We're
Hmm.
all very different in the company. We all have very different, unique ways of approaching things. But the one thing that we all hold exactly the same is the vision of what we're here to create, the purpose of the company, and what we believe to be true about the future of ourselves, others, in the world, with respect to intuitive coaching being what I really perceive to be what is going to pull this world back from the brink of the chaos that we see, right? So I think
Yeah,
it's a solution to so many problems, and so does every person in my team. And so I think that shared vision and then just being more ourselves is how we do it.
that's beautiful. That's great. Well,
Yeah.
what I'm thinking is let's look at your chart and then we'll circle back and talk about how you train the coaches and how people can find out more if they're interested in joining your open community and then potentially working with you. Sound good?
Awesome. Sure.
Right. So the information on the left in the summary is like the main guts. And then we have this thing called the variable over on the right, which is really specific to you. What's so interesting about our human design, I'm going to go down to the body graph now. This is the center and heart of human design is your body graph. It's essentially, I'll make it a little bit smaller so you can see the whole thing. It is essentially a circuit board of what is you and what isn't.
Wow.
So this is the master human circuit board from 1781. With the discovery of Uranus, we changed from 7 chakra beings to 9 centered beings. So a lot of our spirituality, the 7 centered chakra self and all that is not accurate anymore.
Mhm.
We are 9 centered. And what is colored in is Heather. And what's in white is not Heather. So, you had talked about how you use your intuition. And this is very fascinating because your authority is splenic. So let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about your life purpose. The home of intuition in the body is the spleen.
That's funny.
All right. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gates off the spleen and 3 full channels off the spleen, which I almost never see that. Just to tell you, I almost never see 3 channels off the spleen. I see hanging gates, channel or 2, but 3, come on. I mean, you're so doing the right work. But of course, you know that because your spleen is like, yeah. So
Yeah.
splenic authority is very fast. And it just tells you through your senses. So the hair may stand up on your arms, or you get a bad taste in your mouth, or you get a pain in the pit of your stomach, or your mind just says this. So splenic awareness is in the now, 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 now. The thing about it is it only tells you once and then it doesn't repeat itself. So if you're not listening, you're kind of screwed. The whole point of intuition is so we don't die. So when people say, oh, that's woo, I'm like, yeah, without it, you're dead as a duck. And so people that lived in nature, like let's say, a Native American tribe, I was thinking about this story my ex-husband told me, and I never forgot it because to me, it's just such a story of how intuition works. So when we were together, we lived in this very, very rural part of Southern Arizona up in the mountains. And before there were settlers there, there was Navajo tribes there, or Apaches, they were Apache. And they had a woman in one of the tribes, late 1800s, I think it was, and she could smell in the wind when the enemy tribe was coming over the hill. And I thought to myself, well, that's what intuition's for.
Mm.
You don't die. But I didn't really understand why. And so when we look at your chart, you have a couple things going on, and I hope everybody watching here has their chart out, unless you're driving or operating heavy machinery. Wait. But if you can look at your chart, the 5720 channel is the intuitive channel. It almost causes you to blurt out truth. You kind of probably have to bite your tongue sometimes. I have
Yes.
this same channel, and people come to us because we just know. Anyone that has the 5720 is the most intuitive person in the room because it is the intuition channel. It is the intuition channel. Now, some people don't have any of it. They don't have the 57, they don't have the 20, they don't have the channel. So people that don't have it are naturally drawn to us because when they're with us, they can activate it in themselves and experience what that is like. But mostly people will come to us with questions and our spleen will just go, boom, here you go. So that's the 5720. It blurts in the now, the truth, so you can survive in the now. And then the 4426 off the spleen is the intuition to sniff out the right people for the team. It's about team building, building your community so you don't have toxic, destructive, manipulative, dangerous, criminal, corruptive people around you. And there's a lot of people that operate that way because it's the shadow of our DNA. All these gates have shadows. The shadow of your intuition is not listening to it. The shadow of not listening to the smell is a team that will try to destroy you and your business. And the whole channel is the entrepreneur channel. 44 picks the team, 26 does the deal. So you just know business inside and out. It's as natural to you as the sun coming up in the morning. It's just there. And then you have the 3254, which is a very transformational kind of energy, and it's about ambition. So 32 wants to create a legacy, and 54 is the energy to build wealth.
Yep.
So the 3254 and the 4426 are part of the money situation in our human design, about creating abundance. And for you, there isn't a lot of pressure on you in your design to have to create wealth for others, although you will naturally be charitable because you create so much wealth, you kind of can't help yourself. So it's like, what do I do with all this extra? I better share. I better share some of it. So anyway, you've got all that operating, and then the 48 is the ability to go deep into subject matters, and it is our intuition for knowing ourselves deeply and knowing life deeply. 28 is the intuition to find our life purpose and fight for our purpose, and it's a fight gate. And I'm fond of saying the only thing we're fighting for is your purpose. So there you go, intuition. Now let's just talk about your incarnation cross, the left angle cross of education. Well, of course. And what are you going to educate them about? This, your splenic authority. Now, not everyone's splenic authority. It goes emotional in terms of popularity. There's the emotional authority people, 50% of humanity, then the sacral, then the splenic, then the heart, then the G center. And then there's other people that are, they make decisions from their environment. But most people make their decisions emotionally. So having splenic awareness, I grew up with a splenic mother, a splenic authority mother. And it was a running joke in our family. She's never wrong. She's never wrong. I just realized my headset isn't plugged in. I'm going to plug it in. Make this sound better. Sorry, everyone. She was never wrong. You're probably make very good decisions and have most of your life because, you know.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah. So how does this land for you as you hear this?
It's unbelievable. It's it's fascinating because I don't really know a lot about human design outside of what you've literally taught me, when you did our workshop in Atmana. So this couldn't be more fascinating and more on the money. And to know those gates, it is quite literally not only everything does it resonate, but it's right also where I'm at. I feel like I'm hearing this in this moment at the right, perfect time. So right down to building team. Last year I had to fire a person for coming in and trying to quite literally steal my company. I'm in the middle of a lawsuit for that right now. Lovely. Too. So it's interesting to say, but now the team so that's an amazing lesson. It's so cool to hear that is in my chart, that I do have the ability to make those decisions and trust myself in them. And then the wealth, of course, like if I were to say if there's any one sort of generational thing that I feel like in my life, I am destined, and I really do mean that word destined, to break from my family and do it so completely that it's in the opposite direction, 180, it's wealth generation. Yeah. And I really know that I was born to do it. And the more that I'll give myself permission to just be who I am, the easier it gets. So it's so cool. Yeah.
Well, you were born rich. See, like that.
Yeah. On this thing. Yeah, absolutely.
In your body. It's like in your body. Your body is designed to generate this tremendous prosperity because you follow your instincts. Now, one of the things that happens to you with like this person trying to take over your business, I've had that happen, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. It's just really unpleasant. You and I share some similarities. I won't go into all of it right now in our designs that cause people to look at us as their savior. Oh, she's going to fix me. Or they just feel entitled to what we've built. Like, oh, she has enough. She can share some with me. Oh, I'm not even going to ask her to share it. I'll just take it.
That's exactly it.
So what you've always got to do, you need to know this, never hire people you haven't met in person. Because your 44 has to literally sniff them out. And then you have to decide if you can handle from your intuition their projections on you, because everybody's going to project something on you with expectations that you're going to save them or fix them or how you're supposed to lead. And people will blame you if things don't go their way, if you have taken on people who project incorrect things that you can't solve. So it's very important, even if it looks good on paper, even if the person's been recommended to you, if you're like, no, doesn't feel right. No, doesn't matter why. You don't need pros and cons lists. You don't need any mental input at all. Your mind doesn't know how to make decisions. Look at it. Your head's completely open. What does it know? It just gets all this inspiration, gets you all confused. You're thinking about 800 things. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what Heather is thinking about. Remember that. Your mind can't solve your life. For you, only your intuition can take you in the right direction.
I love it.
Yep. So
that's great to hear.
So I'm going to look something up. I want to share something with you that is very interesting. This book, I'm always carrying it around. I want to talk with you about your incarnation cross now. We'll go into home stretch with that. And then I want to circle back to ask you about what's next for Atmana Academy. So your personality sun is your strongest energy. And of course, in astrology, this is our sun sign. And it's what people feel from us the most strongly. Now you're in gate 11, which is the gate of ideas. Ideas. The thing about it is the ideas aren't really for you. They're for other people. Right. So it's good. You know, that's why people are hiring you. Like, do you have any ideas for me? Got any good ideas? I'll pay you for them. I need some ideas. And you've got ideas. You got ideas for days. And it's line 5. And you're going to love this. Okay. So this is the heart of your life's purpose and what you're here to communicate to others. Now, all of these gates with lines have a keynote word that was downloaded when the system was downloaded. And you ready for this keynote word? The philanthropist.
Oh.
The motiveless nurturing of the disenfranchised to ensure harmony. Philosophic and humanitarian ideas.
Oh, it's beautiful. You're going to make me cry.
Yeah. And so one of the things for you to keep in mind is that the people you're here to help need your philanthropic ideas. So it's very good for you to have people who are philanthropic as clients, want to be more philanthropic, run philanthropies, teach systems, even people who, like I was thinking about that Bill Gates documentary I saw where he helped create this like water treatment plant in this city that had just filthy water, and they made it all self-containing. And the goal was to put these up all over the world so that people weren't dying of stupid stuff like cholera and, MRSA and crap like that, Giardia. And that's what philanthropists do, is they build these systems, right? They build infrastructure to help humanity flow better. And you've got these ideas by the dozen of how to improve things. You know how to fix things. You know how to fix things. You're a 5-1 profile. You get 5 on the personality, 1 on the right. And of all the profiles, the 5-1 has the greatest capacity to universalize something globally, to be well-known, famous, and wealthy. I'm also a 5-1. And part of why this is the 5 is a natural teacher and a natural leader and knows how to fix things. And the 1 is willing to do the research. So we have a very strong advantage with this profile of, in most situations, knowing how to create success. It's not a mystery to us. We can kind of, even in situations we don't understand, we just can kind of take it in. Oh, you got to do this, this, and this if you want to get that result. And as a result, people are always projecting because they want you to do that for them.
Right.
Right. I want you to do that for them. All right. And then your personality earth is 12.5. And the personality earth is where we're learning on a soul level. It's a bit akin to our life lesson, and it's where we're being asked to evolve. And I'm going to give you the keynote on this. It is the pragmatist. The success of restraint lies in not abandoning the lessons learned when the phase ends.
I could use a little help with that, actually.
Right? Light is always conscious of darkness. Caution as an expression of social experience. So I call, I didn't come up with this phrase. Once bitten, twice shy.
Mm.
And you won't have this problem again in your business, someone trying to take your business. You will
Yeah,
win
oh
this.
no.
You will
Mm-mm.
win this lawsuit, because
Thank
how
you.
could it be otherwise?
Right. Oh, that's it. Yeah. If they're red-handed, caught red-handed, and it's
Foul.
mm-hmm. And you're right, it's a blessing. And what it's done is it's helped me put in those processes, right? Like the fixer, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I needed to fix.
Yeah.
So I'm going to fix it and it'll never
Oh
happen
yeah.
again. And not only that, but all my
Yep.
students are going to have their businesses built to where this never happens.
Oh yeah.
So,
I had a bookkeeper forge my name
oh
on
my
government
God,
documents.
what?
And she was fudging the numbers, and it was stuff for
Oh,
herself. It was her own government documents, but it needed my signature, and she just decided not to tell me. And I finally looked up
holy.
the documents, and they were filed somewhere online, right? And I'm like, I didn't sign that. Of course, I fired her like, the next day. And, and then she said to me, she said, I'm the only person on your team you can trust. I'm like, okay, whatever you're smoking, you need to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Ironically, that person said the same thing to me. Isn't that funny?
well, they're deflecting all
Mm-hmm.
that shadow material. And so for you, you just have to be extra, extra careful,
Mm-hmm.
because you are so powerful as a manifester. When you speak, you make things happen. That's what manifestors do. You're here to inform and impact others. And manifestors have such incredible manifestation capacity, hence manifesting, because when you speak, things come into being. You don't really need the other like the other types do to make stuff happen. I mean, yes, you need people to help carry out your instructions and carry out the vision, but there's not a neediness there. And all the ideas, all the things come right through you. You're the initiator from your own ideas. You're the initiator of what you're going to create.
Mm-hmm.
So some of your ideas for you, most
Yeah.
of them aren't.
Yeah.
And then finally, the design side are two gates off the G center. The 46, which is love of the body, and 25, which is universal love. So any gates off the G center are about some form of love, some form of love. So if I were to translate these gates, you're here to cautiously share your ideas with those that are ready to be initiated into the sacred acts of physical embodiment and commitment, as well as connecting into the larger cosmos. So there's a very deeply spiritual aspect to what you're doing. And your business is Atmana Academy,
Yeah.
which is about our higher universal
Mm-hmm.
love self who
Mm-hmm.
can connect to collective love.
Mm-hmm.
And the body energy is good fortune. Now, what's interesting is what keeps you healthy literally is exercise. I mean, what keeps some people healthy is singing or toning or walking but for you, it's yoga and dancing and even weight training. But
Mm-hmm.
and adorning the body. Fashion's going to be important to you, and looking good's going to be important to you, and having beautiful jewelry and beautiful surroundings. And I just want to say to you, just to embrace, I think you have embraced it, but embrace it as much as you want, because being that gorgeous queen is what people are drawn to at first. They see you visually, they see you. And so that, and 5-1s too try to look good. I'm a 5-1 as well. Like,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
want to look good because we know this is the first thing people encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to we're not too freaky, right? Like, we don't get too freaky with our fashion. We're not too conservative either. It's kind of just right down the middle, so that the majority of people we interact with aren't distracted by our appearance.
Mm-hmm.
They're magnetized to it, and hopefully they're looking right at our mouth and our eyes to listen to what we say.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole reason for looking good in terms of career. So you naturally do that. You naturally do that. So
Yeah, thank you for that.
you're welcome.
I agree with the exercise. I think it's a way I integrate everything.
Yeah.
It's almost
Yeah.
like after I go for a run, I just feel like everything is in its place
Yes.
and I haven't had to try to put it there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loathe running. Good for you. It's wonderful. My son is, what makes me healthy is spending time alone reading,
Mm.
which is what I've done my whole life. Since I started to read when I was 5 years old. I learned how to read when I was in kindergarten.
And so I've been reading I was reading those big fat books when I was like at the 3rd grade. So being a nerd is what keeps me healthy. So everybody has their thing. Now, I know you got to go. I know you got another meeting to get to. So will you please share with our audience what's next for Atmana Academy and what projects and or events do you have on the horizon? And then of course, everyone listening, before you answer, we will put links to contact Heather Alice Shea in the show notes.
Yeah. So what we are up to is going bigger with what we have been up to. So I am doubling down on what I know my purpose is, right? So we are setting huge goals for 2022. Our goal is to train 150 coaches next year. And we are well on our way to reaching that goal. And the way that we do it is through a free workshop called Live Your Purpose, Launch Your Practice. And it's free because it is an investment to work with us. And so a part of our purpose is to try to give intuitive focused coaches, people who identify as intuitives, the tools that they need to become a prosperous, well-paid coach. I am forever sick and tired of listening to spiritual people talk about how broke they are. Being broken is a choice, and I'm not here for it. But if you are here to do this work professionally, to become a change agent, to be a pro at it, to learn the skills, just like a surgeon goes to school to learn how to be a surgeon, life coaching is a specific discipline, especially the intuitive piece. And that's what we do better than anybody on the planet. And so you can register for that workshop. We run it every couple of months. So no matter when you're listening to this, it will apply to you. And you can go to heatheraliceshea.com/intuitive coach launch, or you can just go to intuitivecoachlaunch.com and get registered for it. We have coaches now. I probably get an email once a week from somebody telling me, I took your free workshop. I just made $4,000. I took your free workshop. I just signed my first $5,000 package. You will make money if you come and do the work, period, end of story, bottom line. So if you want to do it and have fun with it, right? Just go do the free workshop and be an intuitive coach in the world. Please do me a favor and do it, because that's my purpose, to help educate and empower intuitive life coaches. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Oh, it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Any final words of wisdom for our audience?
Go with your gut.
Yeah. Go with that inner guidance, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No matter what happens, just follow that. I have 3 core values that lead and guide my life. The first is that you're more powerful than you know. You're more powerful than you can possibly imagine. You were born for a purpose, and you're guided every single moment of your life to live that purpose and to unlock that power. And the thing that's guiding you is your intuition. You can't fail when you're listening to it. So go out there, be bold. The world needs you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, you like to run on the beach. Do you have kids? Do you have other hobbies? Like what are some other things that take up your time?
Yeah, I have a 17-year-old. She'll be a senior next year.
Wow.
So I love to run on the beach, spending time with my child. I'm actually starting painting. So I'm going to learn how to do painting as just a way to just take my mind off of everything. I am an avid reader like you. I read like 5 books at once because I get bored with one. And so I want to pop to another. So yeah. And then exercising, of course, too, just anything that keeps me in my body and out and moving around. So
wonderful. Well, we hope to have you back.
Yes,
Such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
Everybody who's been watching and listening, thank you so much. If you like the show, leave a review, share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Align to Your Design. If you did, please grab my free report, Business by Design, at yourpurpose.com, and then join our Facebook group, Align to Your Design. See you next time.